Okay, you're reading the title of this video right now and thinking to yourself, what the hell, Apple? I thought we were covering edge guarding and ledge trapping in part 5. So the plan was to do that, but as I was writing out the script for Counter, I realized that I didn't want to make a 1-hour video, especially not with Sony Vegas. Remember how we only covered 5 moves in part 1? Well, here we are doing 1 move in part 5. It really makes you wonder what learning Greninja was like without this series. But anyways, before we start the video, according to YouTube's analytics, none of you are subscribed. You might think that this is a glitch, but as they say, the numbers don't lie. So if you guys could get me to 10,000 subscribers by tomorrow, that would be great. Alright, let's get to it! Looking at his kit, this is probably the most interesting move in it, and thank God because it was awful in Smash 4. Zard Jab beats Counter? Really? Alright, so basic overview of the move. Counter's first activation frame comes out on frame 8 and it lasts until frame 35. This gives you a pretty wide range to get the counter, but remember, you're not Incineroar and it doesn't come out at frame 3, so try not to use it as an escape option. Once you land the counter, you can angle it in 8 different directions, and despite what people might tell you on the Discord server, they're all useful. Greninja's counter is a bit different compared to others in the sense that it doesn't skill knockback based on the move you countered. So yes, you can punish a fireball just as hard as you can punish a Warlock punch. Whenever you land a counter, you turn into Neo from the Matrix and get a Wish Time effect. This makes counter so much easier to connect and was totally missing from Smash 4. But depending on how late counter comes out, your opponent can potentially shield or air dodge the attack. Counter range. The range of this move is around 4.5 blocks in training mode, and if you do counter your opponent in this area, you'll get the Wish Time effect and teleport towards them. This range works in a circle, meaning that it reaches 4.5 blocks upwards as well. If you're outside of this range, you'll have to aim the counter for a chance at hitting your opponent. Whenever Greninja activates counter, he'll have a 50-50 chance of spawning in a log or a substitute doll, which despawns after 10 seconds. A lot of people think that this is useless, but your homeboy found some tech using it for you. We'll hold off on that for now though. Alright, let's get into the uses of each counter direction. Upwards. This is probably the best direction to use counter in. It can kill your opponent regardless of their position on the stage since it kills off the top blast zone unlike most counters. If your opponent manages to get their shield up by the time the hitbox comes out, it's really hard for them to punish this. You know the drill by now. 3, 2, 1, boom! Here are the kill percents. If your opponent just barely survives the counter, you can try to follow up with an up air or nair. Unlike in Smash 4, this isn't guaranteed, so use it with caution. I personally don't recommend double jumping after the counter and then going for the follow-up, because at that point you're probably just swinging above where your opponent actually is. And if you miss that first up air, you can just double jump and try again. You can also use this angle of counter to recover when you're off stage. If you're getting pestered by projectiles such as turnips, peanuts, or bombs, you can counter upwards to give yourself more room to work with. Did I mention that this move is intangible? This means that if you use counter to recover, your opponent can't do shit unless they want to get kicked in the face. Upwards diagonal counter. This counter isn't necessarily the one that you'll want to go for kills with, but it does prove to be useful at times. Just like the upwards counter, you can use this direction to recover back towards the stage against projectiles. In terms of kill power, it's definitely weaker than the upwards counter, but you can still manage to get some close with it. In Smash 4, we had some true combos out of counter, but by the time we have even frame advantage with our opponent in ultimate, the move kills anyways. If this counter doesn't kill, you can jump out towards your opponent and try to connect a fair. This isn't true at all, but I've had it connect enough times to prove itself useful. Sideways counter. Without a doubt, this is the worst angle of counter we have. It almost never kills, can put you in a position to be punished if you're outside of counter range, misses a lot for God knows what reason, and doesn't even work. If you go for counter in any direction, you'll notice how Greninja starts to kick in slightly the opposite direction. If you're just next to the stage when you go for a sideways counter, the game will spawn Greninja inside of the stage and says, nope, then puts Greninja back on the stage with log. I'm sorry, what? This doesn't happen with upwards counter on stage. You'd think that the game would say, oh hey, there's a wall there. Let me just move Greninja over here and now you can start the counter. Come on, dude. Alright, now that I've hyped the absolute crap out of horizontal counter, I'm sure that you're all dying to know what we can do with it. Against Ike and Chrom, you can use this angle of counter to take their stock extremely early when they're recovering. The way that their uppies work, it's extremely hard for them to snap the ledge without activating the counter. And if they've already used their double jump to get back to the stage, counter puts them in a position where it's really tricky for them to recover again. However, because sideways counter is absolutely broken, there is a sweet spot in which Greninja can either spawn in the stage or just whiff the kick on the opponent. If you recognize this, you can counter in towards the stage and force a tech scenario. If they miss this tech, they'll go back out towards the blast zone and pretty much not make it back. How annoying is this recovery? How about this one? How about this one? No matter how you position yourself, it seems that two-framing certain uppies is impossible without trading hits. That's what downwards counter is. Fuck. Alright, back to sideways counter. Believe it or not, sideways counter is the quickest one to come out. So while we can't counter spike Peach's uppie through the stage, we can technically two-frame her with a sideways counter. If Sakurai fixed counter so that the move would actually come out at ledge, this would be so useful. But until then, here's what we can do. Once Peach starts her uppie, go ahead and input the counter. From here, hold in towards the stage. Sideways counter will barely connect and two-frame her for a stage spike. Because of all the Matrix shenanigans going on, teching this is really tricky. Unfortunately, this isn't untechable anytime soon, but it is a really solid option to go for. Dive down. This is what sideways counter wishes it was. If you're near the ledge, this will kill even earlier than upwards counter. And if your opponent shields it, Greninja will bounce off the ground and be able to jump away before getting punished. Straight down! Alright, this is the counter you're all waiting for. Bear with me for like 45 seconds before I get into the whole offstage stuff. On stage, downwards counter doesn't do too much for us because we already have dive down to work with. The way that downwards counter stands on stage is fairly inconsistent, and you kind of can't tell if your opponent's going to go to the left or right. So if you want them to go in one direction, just dive down in that direction. At lower percents, it is possible to follow up after a downwards counter and jab lock your opponent because of the short air time. Not the most practical setup, but hey, what else would you get? If you're outside of the counter range whenever you activate the counter, you can react and downwards counter on spot to avoid a punish or a juggle scenario. This also spawns log right next to you. Remember that Peach tech from earlier? It works even better on Terry. Terry doesn't have an uppie that sweet spots the ledge very easily. If you're expecting him to recover from underneath the stage, you can do a downwards counter through his intangible legs and connect a spike on him. Even if he has a double jump, this will guarantee a kill against him at 45%, and if he doesn't have one, it'll kill as soon as 16. Alright, counter off stage. So I'm pretty sure that most of you have seen that video that FaZe put out a while back on using counter for edge guarding. If you haven't already, I really suggest checking it out, but here's the rundown of it anyways. A lot of characters happen to have a hitbox on the moves that they use to recover. Examples of this are Fox's uppie, Link's uppie, Mario's uppie, Donkey, okay, pretty much every out special in the game. I'm not sure why more people didn't do this in Smash 4, but now a lot of players in Ultimate are saying that counters are busted off stage. If you manage to connect a counter on your opponent's recovery move, you can send them back off stage or into the side blast zone for a kill. Using the different directions and slow-mo effect, Greninja's counter can kill ridiculously early. Okay, cool, that means I want to go for downwards counter no matter what, right? No, just like downer, there is a limitation as to what height you would want to use it from. This is a little bit tricky. To make sure that you don't take your own stock at 0, I'd say that only go for the spike when your opponent is at or above stage height. Wait, why my opponent? Remember how Greninja's counter teleports you towards your opponent first? This means that even if you're at stage height, you might teleport yourself towards your opponent and send yourself into the bottom blast zone before you have a chance to get back to the stage. Furthermore, if your opponent grabs the ledge before your counter comes out, you'll just be putting yourself in an awful position. Okay, my options sound kind of limited here. What can I do? Dive down! This direction of counter doesn't send Greninja nearly as far down towards the bottom blast zone, so you have a lot more room to catch your opponent. It's not a sexy spike, but it does kill extremely early as well. If you go for this, make sure that you have your double jump so you can actually get back towards the stage after taking a stock. Please note, you are not limited to dive down and downwards counter when edge guarding. It's important to be aware of all of your options. The more you play, the more you'll understand how counter works. Let me show you an example real quick. In this position here, I get the counter. I see that Plan is recovering horizontally, meaning that he'll grab the ledge really quickly after counter comes out. If I go for downwards counter, there's a chance that he grabs ledge and I SD. If I go for diag down, I might just hit the stage with counter and not get a stock. So from this position, I see that upwards diagonal is the best counter to go for. I know that I caught his jump earlier, so his escape options are limited and I follow up with a forward air. And look at that, I got on Yeet Smash for it. So be aware of all the possible directions of counter and know when to use them. So you guys think we're done with counter yet? No, I'm like fucking halfway through my script. There's so much to this move, guys. Let's go over some more properties of the move. Counter stalling. You know how whenever you toss out a shuriken in the air, Greninja hops a bit? And if he tosses out another one without touching the ground, he doesn't hop? Counter is kind of the same thing. Use it once in the air and stall, use it twice in the air and fall. And whenever you do fall with counter, you keep the same active counter frames. The quote-unquote substitute stall technique stalls you for a bit longer than shurikens do and allows you to get around certain setups at ledge. Setups at ledge, huh? Let's talk about Snake. Snakes absolutely love to cover ledge get-up options with up smash.
Skip it up and down.
If you see the opportunity, you can get around this with a well-timed counter. You know what else snakes love throwing around?
Grenade!
Before these things explode, they do have a hitbox. Remember how counter doesn't scale knockback based on what you counter? Counter one of these things that only do like 3% and you can take a stock off of it. Back to counter stalling, check this out. If you dash towards the edge of the stage or a platform and input counter just before being in the air, you'll float out with active counter frames. We don't really have a name for this, so I'm gonna go with slip counter. This doesn't change the active frames of counter at all, but it does let you move with it so that you can go a bit deeper for edge guards. Does this move seem weird yet? Just wait. Did you know that you can counter Pac-Man's hydrant? Well, obviously, right? But did you know that you can do it from here? Pac-Man's hydrant is what the game considers to be an active hitbox. If you run up to the hydrant and shield, you'll see that it actually does do very little shield damage, meaning that the hitbox is always active. Even if hydrant is just showing on stage, you can run up to it and get a counter out for free. As of now, this is the only move like this that we know of that can activate counter, but please let me know if you find anything in the comments. Explosive counters. For some reason, don't ask me why. If Greninja is holding an item such as a grenade and counters whenever the item explodes, you'll disappear forever. Let's just go ahead and compare these two counters real quick. Counter 1 and counter 2. Since Greninja disappears for so long, you can really throw people off since they're not used to this timing. This works with any item that detonates in your hand. Snake nades, Link bombs, Mega Koopa, Banjo's grenade egg, and so on. Parry counters. Let's go into the properties of parrying really quickly. Whenever you parry an attack in Ultimate, the game first calculates how many frames of shield lag the parried move has. After this, the attacker is frozen for 11 frames and the defender is frozen for 8. Doing some extreme trigonometry, we see that the defender gets an extra 3 frames after a parry for a punish. Counter is frame 8. So if you manage to parry a multi-hitting move with a 5-frame window in between its hits, you can go for counter out of a parry for a punish. This does work against multi-hitting moves such as Diddy's F smash, but what it works best against is landing aerials. Parrying landing aerials into down tilt is usually a pretty good strategy, but against moves with landing hitboxes, this can be a bit tricky. Sometimes you'll just miss the down tilt or end up trading with the hitbox and it's not a fun time overall. So instead of inputting a down tilt out of parry, you can go for a substitute from this position and get a kill. Lingering substitute. Against moves with lingering hitboxes, once they hit you, they can't hit you again. This makes sense, right? Imagine being stuck in Meta Knight's Tornado and taking damage for every frame that the move's out. Actually, just look at any brawl footage whatsoever. Anyways, if you shield the initial hitbox of the move, the same applies. You only take shield damage once. Now check out what happens when we drop our shield. Whoa, did we get iframes? No, we're not Schultz mains, guys. Come on. The move already connected against us, and now we're invulnerable to that same lingering hitbox. Guess what, though? That hitbox is still active, and we can go for counter from here. This can be used to punish rising aerials on shield, or finally give Greninja some kind of an out-of-shield option. Oh yeah, and it works from parry, too. Let's talk about probably the biggest use of lingering substitute. Against Inklings who land on the stage with up B, counter has a really bad habit of not working. If you see this recovery coming, you can parry the landing hitbox and still get counter to activate, making it actually connect after they hit Squid to Kid Puberty. Counter combos. Whenever you're in disadvantage in Ultimate, you generally have 3 main options to go for it. Air dodge, jump, and attack. If you notice that your opponent generally likes using attacks out of disadvantage, you can punish them with counter really well and get some early kills. Remember how in part 3 we mentioned that Dare is safe on shield? Let's remind our opponent of that. If they keep trying to punish you whenever you use down air on shield, don't be afraid to call them out with counter. Because they put themselves closer to the top blast zone when reaching for you, this can make upwards counter kill even earlier. Alright, I promised you guys some Logitech, so let's get into it. First of all, I really recommend this Logitech webcam. It's really great for streaming and... Oh. You thought I meant... Oh. I'm going to be referring to this thing that pops out whenever you use counter as log, but just know that this all applies to substitute doll as well. Alright, what are the properties of logarithm? Apart from being the inverse of an exponential function, it's important to know log does not do damage. So don't try to do Wii Fit ball strats with log because you are not going to send your opponent into the blast zone with it. That being said, log does extend the hitboxes of moves that connect with it. Okay, I just said some really fancy shit. What's an extended hitbox? You know how in Ultimate pretty much all moves have hitboxes, right? That's this red stuff that's responsible for launching the opponent. Ultimate runs at 60 frames a second, and the way that we see how long these hitboxes are active for is by using frame data. If we look at the hitbox for Shadow Sneak, for example, we'll see that it's only active for 2 frames. So despite being crazy strong, there's a really small window in which the move is active for. Let's compare this Shadow Sneak to one that connects on an opponent. Whoa, that one looked like it lasted for a lot longer, right? That's exactly what we're doing by extending the hitbox of a move. The extension doesn't refer to the size of the hitbox, but the frames that it's active for. This means that we can connect these attacks with very little active frames much easier. Example time. I think by now we all know what a 2-frame is, and we all know how hard it is to connect. There's literally a 2-frame window in which you can hit your opponent as they snap to the ledge. I don't know about you, but a 0.03 second window seems pretty fucking hard to get. Remember this back air tech from part 2 of the guide? The reason that this 2 frames so well is because it's active for 10 frames, making that window much wider to land the hit. What if we could extend a move such as down smash so that we have more than just 3 frames to connect for a 2-frame? Log time! If you use down smash on log, you'll extend the hitbox to last for not 3, not 4, not 5, but 15 frames. So if you position yourself just right and have good enough spacing on your down smash, 2 frames becomes so much easier. I don't have an exact formula for you on how long moves get extended for, but the stronger the move that you connect on log, the longer it lasts for. While something like down tilt hitbox only extends to last for 1 extra frame, a fully charged down smash can last for 20 frames instead of 3. And don't even get me started on up smash. This move goes from being active for 10 frames to 42. And that's without a charge. Okay, this seems cool and all, but how would we use extended up smash? This move covers so much space, and extending the hitbox can make it really effective for ledge trapping. If your opponent's at ledge, you can down tilt up smash log to get the extension going. This setup will catch neutral get up, roll, and kill if they jump into the lingering sweet spot. If you're in disadvantage and need a landing option, you can down air off of log relatively safely since you'll enter the pop-up part of the move. Now, all of you creative Greninjas are probably thinking, wait, we can down air off of log. Does that mean that we can extend our hitbox for a spike? Not really. If you were to down air the log from up here, the move's hitbox isn't even covering the ledge for a 2-frame. Even if you get creative with it and push log off stage, the hitbox doesn't extend as much as you think it would. What you can do instead is make down air a safe lingering option to go for. If your opponent's getting off of ledge, you can extend Sour Spot down air's hitbox for ledge trapping. If your opponent chooses neutral get up while the hitbox is out, you can combo off of it without having to worry about missing and entering landing lag. While you can't spike your opponent with down air reliably, you can stage spike them extremely early with another tech. This works best against teleport recoveries or uppies without hitboxes. Once log is next to ledge, you can drop past the stage and use it to extend Shadow Sneak's hitbox. Absolutely nobody is expecting to have to tech this, so you can get a stage spike really early. If they do manage to hit that tech, you might as well forfeit the match since you're playing against Sakurai himself at that point. Okay, so hitting log with pretty much any move extends that move's hitbox, right? What's stopping us from doing that against our opponent's recovery move? While I was dicking around in training mode in 2019, I thought of this. If you manage to hit the log into your opponent's recovery, you can really mess with them. This can make it so that the recovery takes forever to go anywhere and gives you much more room to work with when going for an edge guard. Against certain characters, you can even interrupt their recovery by making it connect with log. The 2 characters that come to mind are Ness and Charizard, but only because FaZe got this clip. Believe it or not, attacking log actually adds moves to the stale counter. So if you want to unstale your moves after taking a stock, you can throw a few shurikens at it. Alright, here's the final log tech, log knockback storage. If you aren't following me on Twitch, I can guarantee that you don't know about this. And even if you are, it's probably a 99% chance that you don't know. Say that we're in this position here. Log is on the stage and we're being camped out by projectiles. Sure, log can block a lot of projectiles and save us the trouble of having to shield or jump around them. The thing is, if log is flat on the ground like this, some projectiles can go over it. Wouldn't it be great if we could just rotate log so that— yes, we can do that! After spawning in log, you can rotate it by hitting it with Hydro Pump. Each hitbox of pump that connects with log will rotate it slightly, allowing it to block higher projectiles. Okay, so why is this called log knockback storage? The way that Hydro Pump interacts with Log is really weird. Depending on the most recent move that Log was hit by, Hydro Pump will send it at that angle, making it so that you can't rotate it anymore. This can make it look really awkward when you Hydro Pump Log one way and it goes the other. Log knockback storage also works with your opponent's moves, so you can get some Warlock Punch storage going if you want. What if I want to rotate Log again so that it defends against more projectiles? Jab. Yeah, how about Log? Not as useless as it seemed before, right? Well, there's actually one last thing I can teach you. I give you the substitute shimmy.
Wiggle, 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 yeah. Wiggle, 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 yeah. Wiggle, 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 yeah. Wiggle, 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 yeah, yeah. Do the wiggle, man.
For some reason, Log has a seizure in slow-mo. You might have missed it in some of the clips in this video, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. In an actual match, you won't see this unless the game screen comes up, so yeah, it's pretty weird. Alright, part 5 in the books. What was that, like 20 minutes for just substitute? Yeah, no way in hell am I going to be able to cover ledge trapping in this part. I guess that's what part 6 is for. By the way that my schedule is looking, this is probably going to be my last upload of 2020. And let me just say, what a fucking year it's been. My channel went from being a funny meme page that took me 15 minutes to make into in-depth guides that cost me weeks to put together. But either way, the support from you guys has been absolutely amazing, and I'm incredibly thankful to have you all as subscribers. If you somehow haven't heard already, I now have a Discord server. So if you like Greninja resources, drills to improve your Greninja, viewer battles, or just a place to chill, the link to join is right there in the description. Alright guys, I'm gonna get out of here and fucking edit this video. Thank you all so much for sticking around with me this year. Hopefully, I'll see all you tadpoles in 2021. And as always,
Hold in.